I would always say to just go for it. And it could be really small. I think there's this idea that you have to quit your job and you have to put all your life savings into the business and sleep on your friend's floor in order to start a business. And that's really scary. Like most people don't want to do that. And actually, it doesn't have to look like that. You can also, go part-time, take it bit by bit. If someone wants to leave a great job, I'd just say start small, try a trial concept, just give it a go.
Welcome to Entrepreneurial Minds Decoded. I'm Claudine Ng, and I explore the stories behind the game changers. I have with me today Riya Patel, who is co-founder and CEO of All The Aunties. Hi, Riya. Nice to see you.
Hi, Claudine. Nice to see you.
All The Aunties produces a type of cheese called paneer. What is paneer?
Paneer is a fresh, non-melting cheese. So I would say it's got a very similar flavor profile to something like mozzarella, but it doesn't melt. So it's brilliant. In India, it's used as kind of the chicken. It's really high in protein. It's got the equivalent of like twice that of tofu and a very similar protein profile to say a chicken breast. But really, yeah, it's a fresh cheese. It's made in milk. It doesn't melt, and it's totally delicious.
What's your natural competitor? Is it another type of cheese like halloumi, or maybe something like you say, high protein, low carbs like tofu or tempeh?
Yeah, I mean, there are, of course, other paneer brands that exist. I think they've been very heavily commoditized, and so they largely exist in ethnic aisles or own brand. And so I think people really misinterpret and misunderstand the ingredient itself. So we actually don't think we're a totally different proposition to other paneer brands. So our main competitors, I would say, it's not paneer, it's not even vegetarian proteins. I wouldn't even say it's cheese. Largely, we're competing with like to be a really viable protein option for the masses. So we're looking at like chicken, how people potentially now perceive tofu, where they look at salmon. We're really trying to get people to think about paneer as being a really delicious and viable option for their weekly shop, just as like a really versatile protein option. So that's where we want to be playing.
I've never tried paneer, but I'm really excited to try it the next time I'm in London. Most founders would be happy with one major retailer listing their product, but your product is listed in three of the largest supermarkets in the UK: Tesco, Sainsbury's, and Ocado. And just after less than 2.5 years of operations, how did you do it?
Gosh, we sold our first ever product in March last year. So it has been like a really crazy year. I mean, I guess the difference between us, I think, is like we really are the right product and the right brand at the right time. And I think if you're on that wave, then the opportunities are kind of there for you. We're not competing in a category where there are loads of other brands, like snacking or functional drinks having a huge moment. There are just like countless brands fighting for shelf space.
Yeah.
No one really wants to run a business in specialty or ingredient cheese. It's just not particularly sexy. We're dealing with chilled supply chains, which are a real nightmare and challenging. And so we really are one of very, very few brands competing for the shelf space. And I think largely dairy has been a really, because we sit in the cheese aisle, so we sit next to halloumi and feta and mozzarella. And when you walk past that aisle, it's so beige, it's so plain, it's so own label. And actually, as a brand, we bring so much color, culture, innovation to a really stagnant category. And so it's a really clear proposition for a retailer where we say, we're going to bring incremental value to your category. We're going to bring some color, we're going to bring some innovation, and we're going to champion an ingredient that's growing already quite quickly, but has the potential to do this much if you have someone working behind the scenes to market it correctly. And so actually our value proposition was really strong, and like our point of differentiation was really strong. And so actually before launching the business, when I soft launched it, so I literally this was when I was in my last job, I mocked up some packaging, didn't even have product because at the time we didn't have a manufacturer. And I took it to this food pitching event, pitched it with these empty taped up boxes. And there were like people in the audience from sort of Whole Foods and Ocado. And straight after I did that pitch, they were like, that's really great. We'd love to chat. And so that then like preceded a bunch of conversations, a lot of learning on my part. But really the appetite was there from the outset from the retail partners. And so we've been really fortunate on that front. But also I think We had the privilege of kind of building in a category that where there's so much scope to do better and put forward a better proposition. And so yeah, I think that's just how we did it, a mixture of just like really good timing, but also just a perfect proposition for a tired category that like buyers and supermarkets can get really excited about. So yeah, it's been that's not been the hard part, I'd say.
The retailers are really excited about it. And so you have to make the consumers excited, right? So do you make your products stand out in this very busy market on the shelves through color and packaging or storytelling? What do you do?
Exactly. I kind of mentioned the color and the culture. And for supermarkets, I think, when you're walking past a shelf, they say you've got 3 seconds to make a decision on average, someone will take 2 to 3 seconds to decide whether they're going to pick your product up off the shelf. And so for us, making sure there was a lot of color. I mean, Indian culture anyway is extremely vibrant. There's lots of color, super rich in culture. And so it was important that as a brand, we reflected that. And then I also, I really did look at the shelf and I thought, someone's got 2 seconds. How am I going to grab their attention as they're walking past? Let's make it really, really bold and bright. And someone told me this thing when I was like, learning all about brand and brand building. Someone said that a really effective way of brand building that they've seen in the last few years has been something called chaos branding, which is essentially just like an assault on the senses. So if you see things that it's like really fluorescent and vibrant, you're likely to remember it because it's so sort of like whack. And you see that with kind of brands like Beavertown, which is a really popular IPA beer company in the UK. It's like, all the branding is crazy. But I remember the first time I saw it, I was like, that's some crazy branding. And so I thought that was definitely kind of at the forefront. And so, yeah, we have loads of color on the front of the pack, but also in the case that, we think about it from the front of the pack to also, what sits on the outside of the pack, what colors we use on across the packaging, how it all looks when all three of our products are on shelf next to one another, really get that like visual impact to optimize on the visual impact of the product. So yeah, that was one thing, the color. And then the second thing that I was knew I wanted was that people buy from people. People love stories, and consumer especially. People are looking for food in their shopping experience to tell them a bit more of a take them on a bit more of a journey. It's a bit more of an experience. And people are drawn to face. And I think I always love, if someone was to like say Uncle Ben's rice, the first thing I think of when I think of that product is Uncle Ben, the like picture of Uncle Ben at the top. And so I knew I wanted to have some illustrations of family on the front of them. And so we made them really colorful and like really, really vibrant. And people have really taken to that. We're the only face that's on the front of anything in dairy. It's the only face you see.
How did you build the business? How did you get from idea to the shelves?
Yeah, I think so I mentioned that like soft launch where I took that packaging, and because that went really well, felt like I'd validated the idea and the concept. So at the time, I was working full time in my job, and I dropped down to part time. This would have been oh my gosh, 2.5 years ago. Dropped down to part time, and so still had money coming in from that job, and took the time to find the manufacturing unit. I decided I was going to raise a little bit of money, raised £140,000 on the concept, which is a challenging thing to do anyway. But, we got there and basically spent 6 months part time, raising a bit of money, finding a manufacturer, and getting the product to a place where it was retail ready. And in that time, I'd managed to bring in my co founder, who is my brother in law. And he has like all the ops and data and numbers experience that I just don't have, but also don't necessarily enjoy. And so he was actually really instrumental in getting the business to a place where like, we both could quit and just sort of go for it. And so, yeah, I would say taking the first step to just going part-time and deciding that I was going to take it seriously was one thing. And then making sure I had some financial cushion to fall back on in order to build the business. I come from a public sector background, didn't have loads of savings. Big retail and supermarkets are expensive and hard, and it's scary. And I think being able to raise a little bit of money at the start was really instrumental in like making sure I had what I needed to, do the packaging runs, meet Ocado's first order, which was like £5,000 worth, for example, which in the grand scheme of things isn't that much, but at the time when you're straight out feels like loads of money. Was a really big step in getting started. So that's kind of how it all happened. And then I went full time basically at the end, 6 months after I'd gone part time, and me and Jack kind of went all in. And then it was sort of all systems go, basically launched on the shelves of Whole Foods in March, and then Tesco followed soon after. And since then it's just been like one thing after the other.
It's been a real whirlwind by the sounds of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Big one.
What was harder than you expected when you started a business from scratch?
I think oh, that's such a good question because I think it's changed. Initially, it was having this like constant feeling of guilt when you're not working on it. I think you're constantly feeling like you're not doing enough, or that other people are constantly doing more than you, especially when you get these like fantastic opportunities. We had a lot of traction very quickly, and so had this reputation for growing very fast. And I think number one, felt very imposter about that because didn't really know what I was doing and still, really don't. And kind of marrying that up with like all this pressure that you put on yourself to do really well, say yes to everything, be everywhere. And actually, over the last 6 months, it's been about how do we work really efficiently? How do we build good culture as we grow the team out? And actually, now I think what's hard now is a bit more about, what are we doing that's really effective? Like, let's really strip this back and look at what's working and what's not, and think strategically about building. And so it's been because my role has just shifted. Like, I'm founder, which is basically just doing everything, doing the vision, doing the MPD. But now it's a lot more strategic thinking about the future for the business. And as you hire, you have a responsibility to people around you and your investors and your employees to do a good job at that. And that for me, I think has been an unexpected challenge. But a really exciting and welcome one, I think is tough, especially if you're like first time business owner.
What's the reality of a food business? What are the day-to-day things that you have to fight? For example, is it food going stale or there's a production issue? What keeps you busy?
Yeah, I think it is like one of those things where you're just feels like sometimes you're constantly fighting fires. But I think there is never a time when everything is going right. There is always something going wrong, whether it's like a supply chain issue or it's a merchandising problem where your product's not like on the shelf, or I don't know, a launch has been delayed. There's a constant sort of churn of things. I think what largely keeps me busy at the moment is just sort of like trying to move the business forward. I think I do a lot of the practical growth stuff. So when I'm not kind of fighting fires, it's really thinking about like what are the new products we could be doing? What needs to happen for us to launch that? Do we need to do like lots of partnership stuff? So I'd actually say, a huge part of my role at the moment is just people. So that'll be building like personal and business brand, do relationships, but also making sure we've got good relationships with industry, with our consumers, with other businesses, because it's been instrumental in kind of getting us to where we are. And that just like maintaining your relationships in a way that is like fruitful, but also really positive and really fun takes a lot of time. Takes a lot of time and is really, really important. Like consumer businesses and all business really is about people, but especially when you work in like a consumer brand space, it's really important. So that keeps me pretty busy, that alone. And then lots of like product development and strategic thinking, hiring. I mean, it's endless.
Where do you manufacture?
We manufacture our product in the UK. So we have a factory up in the Midlands that makes all the product by hand, and we use 100% British milk, which is great.
I know of founders in FMCG who've built their own factory, and the cost is absolutely killing the bottom line. Would you choose to build your own factory?
I think for some businesses it makes sense. If you're a single ingredient focused business like peanut butter, and you have a particular method in a particular way, and you really want to control that. As you scale, it makes sense because you can crawl back that margin. gives you a bit more freedom in terms of what you decide to do in terms of product development. And we have an element of that, absolutely, in terms of the method. But we don't know like what direction the business is going to go in yet. We're far too early. And so to make a decision, especially, you mentioned how expensive it is, the outlay is huge. So we need to have absolute confidence, like this is the direction we're going and this is the volume and this is what it's going to look like. And I think early stages, you rarely have that that understanding. And, I know smaller businesses who have moved into their own site, quite small, making chili oils and sort of things like this. The thing is, I think that's really great, but I think you'll quickly, if things go according to plan, you'll quickly outgrow that. And then the next thing is you'll be looking for another site. And, ultimately, when you run your own manufacturing or running two businesses, and we have no intention at the moment of like spreading ourselves thin like that. But I don't know, in 5 years' time, if we're a pure paneer business and we're running like, 40 million a year in paneer and we just desperately need more space and we want to control things, then 100%. But we'll be driven by what the business needs at that point and cash. It's very, very expensive to build a factory site. So it'd be a serious undertaking and not one we have any intention of doing at the moment.
How do you manage buy one, get one free, 3 for 2 pressures on your bottom line?
Yeah. We actually don't we don't do, I think with certain ingredients, we're actually not even allowed to do buy one, get one free or 3 for 2. So we kind of managed to dodge that. We're not technically allowed to. But what we do, and we do strategically, is price promotion reductions, which are fairly shallow. And we integrate that into our cash flow. So we plan them out a year in advance. We have like the budget set for that, that comes out of must be our GM2. And so we know exactly how much we're spending on the promotions and we plan them in because they are the most effective way of getting people to trial the product. So for us, they're a bit of a marketing exercise because price barrier is always one of the biggest things to getting people to try something new, especially if it's premium. But we know our return purchase rate is always very high after those periods. So we see them more as like a marketing exercise to encourage trial. And we integrated it into our model from the very outset. So, when we think about our margins and our bottom line, it's all with the fact that like we're probably going to sell X percentage on promotion, and we need to make sure we're clear on how that hits us and how that hits our P&L.
Do you sell direct to consumer as well?
We do not at the moment, no.
Is that a strategic decision because it's just too much work, or you don't think that you'll have the demand coming directly to you?
Yeah, I mean, we'd love to do direct to consumer. I think it's so great for getting customer data. The margins are just like notoriously better. Unfortunately, with chilled product, it's just very expensive and it's high admin. So I think it's just been a practical thing that we've not had the capacity to explore. We're also a shorter shelf life, so I don't think, from what we understand at the moment, is that people are consuming multiple packs of paneer every 2 weeks. And they can't leave it then for like a month because it will expire. And so the way people consume and at the velocity at which they consume it isn't where it needs to be for us to like viably explore direct to consumer at the moment. But it's something that we would love to do at some point. And when we get the category to where it needs to be, then like for sure we would look into it.
Are you getting data from the retailers about what sort of people are buying your food? I guess that's quite difficult, isn't it? What age category, male, female? How much information do you get from them?
So because we are a very small business, we get some like 3 levels of data that you wouldn't normally get. I guess the caveat here is that you largely have to pay for all data and it really is like very, very expensive. So for Tesco, we currently don't pay for any. We will purchase some this year because we need data to know who your consumer is, no doubt. But on Ocado is what we use the most because they're all online. So the data that they have for their customers is really rich. So you can really see, repurchase rates, demographic, what their basket size is like, what else they're buying. It's amazing stuff. And so we cut that in lots and lots of ways to like look at our repurchase rate, try and figure out who our consumer is. How do we bring them back if they've lapsed from brand? And that's been amazing. And we use that a lot. I'm the least data driven person in the team. we've got a head of commercial and Jack, of both of whom like are all led by data. And so it's really important to us to understand who our consumer is.
Absolutely. What are general payment terms from retailers, and how does that work with your cash flow?
So kind of similar to the data thing, you get some allowances in the first year as you kind of launch into big retail to support small brands. So our payment terms are anywhere at the moment from 5 days to 14. So really good, like really kind of great. They will shortly be extending from like 60 to 90, which is more standard for industry, yeah, consumer industry. But there are ways, so we've been really lucky. So it's something we've had to worry about. But we have sort of anticipated the fact that that will all change. And so we've kind of explored different options of managing that cash flow. And there are various kind of debt financing options and like credit note startups that kind of operate to resolve this very issue that consumer businesses face. And so, yeah, we'll be okay on that front. But it's something that you need to be educated and understand about, and obviously bake into your cash flow if you're not planning on using any of these other platforms that exist. One of which is Mimo, I should give a shout out to, because, or Mimo, which is great. It exists for this very reason, like 3-month payment terms.
So I love that you care a lot about sustainability and reducing waste in production. How do you manage that?
I think, and this will come from Jack, because Jack's sort of like the supply chain king, but waste is only really an option if you're not managing your supply chain correctly. And that, of course, takes time. Like it's been something that we've had to work on. It's something we're still working on. But really, once you understand, and it is a two-way relationship, because obviously, like if a retailer places an order and it's too high based on your sales, you're going to have waste. And so it's about working with them to sort of get that right, which takes some time. But once that's right, then it's up to you to run like a pretty slick supply chain, have stock on hand if you need to do top ups, not overproduce. And actually, there's lots of sophisticated ways and lots of like AI modeling tools now where you can really optimize your supply chain if you run like a short life product. And we use everything under the sun to kind of make sure we're reducing waste as much as viably possible. But then again, once it hits the shelf, it's kind of out of your hands. But we have various measures we use to kind of drive sales if things are getting to end of life on shelf. It's just a bit slower. But a lot of the responsibility is kind of on us as a business to make sure we're doing everything we can to run a slick supply chain, not waste.
So when your food gets to close to use by date, what happens? Do you say to the retailers, can you discount it, or do they automatically discount it?
They will automatically do that. Yeah, yeah. But it depends on the retailer, because obviously Ocado is a very clever system where, because it's online, like 90% of the orders have been made for your product before they place their order, if that makes sense. So like, they'll get an order for like 4,000 units, they'll order 5,000 so that they like fulfill all those orders, and then it rolls into the next one just in case. It's very clever. So there's like no waste basically. With when you're on shelf, it's a bit different because they all have their own sort of like policies, but largely, yeah, they'll go on to reduce to clear to kind of, but that still gets put through as waste, technically, even though it's been sold. But yeah, that's currently how it works.
What does your cap table look like? Do you have mainly angel investors, industry experts, VCs, all of the above?
Yeah, we have largely industry experts, so people so angel investors who are from industry. So I would say 90% of our cap table are probably like FMCG industry people who've either run and exited businesses themselves or are running very successful businesses in industry. And then we do have one more institutional investor who runs a consumer only fund. And they have a particular pop for early stage businesses, which is like essentially, which means they kind of institutional without all the institutional bureaucracy, which is great. So they essentially came in kind of more on angel terms, which is great. That's kind of what our cap table looks like at the moment. But it was really important to us for this round, given we're so early in our journey, to have people who are really going to add value for us. And so it's been really nice sort of seeing it happen, because since we've launched, our investors have just been like awesome in supporting us and advising us. And yeah, it's been great.
So you consciously targeted those investors. How did you find them?
Networking. I think like I said, like I spend a lot of time doing people stuff. And sometimes it doesn't always pay dividends, but like largely someone will know someone who will know someone who can help you. And so for me, LinkedIn is a really powerful tool for plugging into industry networks. So we've got a few investors that way. And you just have to like relinquish ego when it comes to LinkedIn. People hate it. It's really effective in industry and consumer for sure. And then the rest of it was essentially warm introductions. It was like having someone who introduced us to someone, and just asking to be introed, like being a bit unashamed. And people want to help you. I think if you're fundraising, everyone knows what it's like. And a warm introduction goes much further away than like cold outreach or these investor networking events, which can actually just be like quite intense. And for us, it's a bit of a relationship. It's a bit like dating. You'll meet someone who just like will really get what you're doing and loves you and thinks you're fantastic. And often that's enough when you're really early stage. It's someone being like, you're really great and I really believe in what you're building and I'm just going to take a punt on this. Because when you're so early, that is really what it is. And so if you don't feel it and they don't feel it, then it's fine. It just kind of like isn't for everyone, just as every investor is not for you. And so yeah, just getting out there, having as many meetings, being as many people as possible. Yeah.
And those people who said no may come back later in your next round anyway, once they've seen the traction.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Or they'll have, made an investment in something else which they feel is more, they understand more. But yeah, all of those relationships are really helpful whether they invest or not. So I never see it as like wasted time, really.
You raised 140,000 at pre-seed and subsequently you've done the seed round. How easy or difficult was it at both stages? Did you find one easier than the other, or was it the same easy or same difficult?
Um, pre Pre-seed is harder, I think, because at the time there's so much I didn't know. So it was like an absolute punt for a lot of people. And I was alone, so I didn't have any co-founder. I hadn't gone full time yet. I think it was, and I didn't know what I was doing. I'd not done it before. And so I just hadn't had no, it takes so much confidence to just go for it that first time. And eventually I got there, but it was tough. We raised it in 1.5 million valuation, which I think for an idea is actually like a little punchy, but it's just, it's not uncommon, it's not unseen, but I think, that was also tough. So that was really hard. And I didn't know anyone. I didn't have anywhere near as like rich a network as I do now. So yeah, that was tough. But we did have some great external angel investors who loved the brand and the concept and was like, just going to go for it. And they're very thrilled now. So it's been
I'll
great
bet.
to have them very happy. And they all came back in and reinvested for the next round, which was really like validating, obviously. And the next round, I mean, it was much bigger, closer to 700K. And it took the same amount of time and was difficult in lots of different ways. I mean, that time we'd had so much traction. We were kind of like the hot new brand and consumer. And so getting the meetings with the people wasn't hard. I think people were excited. I think we had, the challenges then were on valuation, because we'd been launched for 3-4 months. The ARR wasn't like huge because it was all in the pipeline. So like we started raising before we went into Tesco when Tesco was confirmed. And so it was another punt. I mean, slightly less so because we'd had like quite a lot of traction, but there were no real numbers. There was no real revenue. And so it was hard for that reason to value the business at what we thought was fairly, but kind of without loads of evidence, I suppose, on like revenue and run rate and stuff. So that was tough. And I think you also get people, I mean, it, it's hard to say, but I think you get people who want to squeeze you when you're very early on and want to like kind of get quite a lot for quite a lot. Sorry, want to get quite a lot for not a lot. And I think it was having the conviction to say no where we thought it wasn't right. That was quite hard because we got lots of offers for like most of the round, which was like amazing. I was like, oh my gosh, we've just gone out and this person wants to do this much. But then, what happens at the end of those conversations is they're like, I'll do it all, but on these terms and this valuation, you're just thinking, you just need to have conviction in the fact that we'll be able to close it and what we think is fair. And so it was hard for that reason. But, they both took a similar amount of time, like 5-6 months. They were both not easy. But I have real belief that everyone gets there with fundraising and it's rarely easy. But I'm hoping we have such an amazing cap table now. We've had such great growth this year that I'm hoping next time I'm gonna blink and it's gonna be done. Famous last words, but like you never know.
Are you happy that you had a co-founder through the seed round to talk things through? Has life become easier, better as a founder, having someone else?
My gosh, totally, totally. I just think it's so lonely if you don't have one. I think it's lonely. It's having someone in the pain cave when things are tough. Things go wrong all the time. And you need someone who you can call at 9 p.m. and say, this is going really wrong and what are we going to do? And if you don't have one, you're doing that alone. And I just think, if anything, it's like there's no soundboard. Decision fatigue must be absolutely exhausting because we're making decisions all day and it's tough. And so I mean, Jack's got a completely complementary skill set to me, is like really ops and numbers driven, so runs a supply chain in such an amazing and impressive way, so I don't even have to worry about that, which is one thing. But largely, co-founders are so important just for like support. I think doing it alone is I don't know, I don't think it's worth it. People do, and I'm always mega impressed. But having a partner to just like support you and bounce ideas off and everything is so important. And we wouldn't be here if I didn't have Jack. There's no way. And the fundraising, he built the financial model. He did all the assumptions. He did all the financial planning and analysis. I'm not great at that. It's just not my strength. I'm like a sales, brand, vision person. And we were legit. People came and looked at the business, looked at the numbers and was like, this is going to work. It's really great. You guys are impressive. And it's us together, are a package worth investing in. I really believe that. But without him, I think Ken struggled.
What does success look like to you?
You know what? We talk about this quite a lot because when we fundraise, there's a lot of talk about big exit. How are you going to make this £100 million brand? And of course, that is a mega exciting concept that it could go there. But I think we're a year in. We're going for 1 million this year. And I'm confident we'll hit it. But like, we're 3 people, and actually we love what we do. We feel really passionate about the mission and our purpose and the brand. And success would really be like growing the paneer category to, I'm not even going to put 1 million on that, but like to a place where people are like really having it in their fridge, where it's a bit more of a staple, the repeat purchase rate's going up. At the moment, average is like people buy a pack a month, who buy it. If we as a brand are able to get people buying it once every week, that would be super successful in my eyes. If we're able to grow the category 5-fold, that's a real success. And we're kind of like the market leaders in that space. That's success. And so really for me, it's just like delivering on the mission that we say we're on. And like, that doesn't have to, like, for me, that's really not financially driven. I just feel really fortunate to be doing this as a job and I absolutely love it. And if we're running this in 10 years time, I think I'm going to be pretty happy about it as well. And actually, I don't think you can go that wrong. If you're like listening to your consumers, you're building products you would love and buy, you keep your mission at the forefront, I think you'll build a business that's how the business started. That's like how the brand came about. People loved it, it fit. And I think if we keep that at the core, then I don't think we can go too far wrong. But yeah, I love for the brand to be a household name. That would be like my dream. Everyone was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go. Make sure you go get that All The Aunties when you go to the shop. Don't forget. Like that would be pretty cool. That would be my dream, I think.
In 10 years, are you a multi-product company diversifying into other products, or are you still focused on paneer?
I think we are open. I think I mean, there are so many things that I would love to launch in other categories. But I want to make sure that we give paneer and the category the opportunity, the love and attention it deserves. So our priority right now is doing that and doing it really well. And ultimately, I think will be driven by what the market's saying. Like, if it's just flying and we just need to give it all our attention, then that's what we'll do. And in which case, in 10 years' time, we'll probably be trying to build our own paneer factory. But if there's a real need for ingredients in other categories that people really are looking for and want, then I think that's what we'll do. And that's the benefit of being like a small and nimble business, that we can make decisions like that on the fly. But yeah, for now, I think we're just focusing on really doing well with our retail listings and focusing on getting paneer into more packs in hands, basically.
What were you like as a kid?
I was really naughty. I was really naughty kid. I get told it all the time, even now. I was really, my mum would describe me as like very hyperactive. So always running around, loved talking, very sporty, did all the extracurricular activities, but never did my homework. So like was always in trouble at school for not doing nasty things, but just never doing my homework. And I was one of the students who was sort of, I would say generally I'm quite a creative person, but I never really had an outlet to exercise it because I was able to achieve academically. And so I went to a very academic school and like kind of really hated it. And so was classic that kind of student who would just cram 2 days before and like always get by just by the skin of my teeth. And so yeah, that was kind of me. I just love being out of the house, hated sitting still. I hate being on the beach. And it's very much like my dad, who happens to also run a business. So I think a lot of entrepreneurs are wired in very similar ways. And so I think I found my people here running a business because we're just able to like, I think I did so many things and I was always all over the place. And actually, when you found a business, every day you're like doing that anyway. So it just feels like, it fits the personality that I've got at hand. Just great. Yeah.
It sounds like it. And for someone who didn't do homework and got into Cambridge, that's pretty impressive. You were a
Yeah.
senior
Just.
advisor. You were a senior advisor in the civil service, and I read that you wanted to be a diplomat. So why would you leave this amazing job to take a huge risk and jump into entrepreneurship?
Yeah. Well, I actually it was to me the idea of that was my like dream. So I went into the civil service really intentionally, really wanted to work in diplomacy. And as I got closer and closer to like getting a diplomatic job, I just realized that like I didn't want to do it anymore. I think I found the bureaucracy really hard. I actually think it's a really academic job and like typically I don't think I really am a very academic person. I don't enjoy studying. Like I love learning, but like I'm very on my feet. I'm at my best when I'm on the move. And I think it wasn't the right environment for me to like really excel. And I was working quite hard to do well. And I was doing well, but it wasn't natural, I would say. And so when I realized that, I was like, oh, I think this isn't what I thought it was going to be. That dream maybe isn't the dream I thought it was going to be. And so then I thought that like what I had to think what's my dream, like what do I always want to do, and I was like I'd always wanted to work in food. I just thought it was like the coolest job in the world. And I realized no one was going to hire me to work in food because I had no experience working anywhere other than government and definitely not in food. And I'd seen a friend of mine who, Claudine, Georgia, who we lived with at the time, who's very impressive and has an amazing business. And I lived with her for a few years as she was starting that. And I'd seen her go on this amazing journey and I was so inspired. And I thought, that looks fun. Like maybe I could just have a go and like trying something. And I remember telling her that I had this idea and she was like, you know what? Give yourself a year and just go for it. And then you'll have no regrets because you're young. It may not work. You'll learn so much and you can say you tried. And so I did. So I was like, I'm just going to start. And it was really small. And I started doing my supper clubs and then it all rolled into this business as it is today. But yeah, it was I can't actually remember what your question was. I think I'm veered off. Have I veered off, Claudine?
No, no,
Yeah.
you're definitely on track.
Oh, great.
I was asking why
That
you would
was
leave this amazing job. I mean, I sound like my Asian parents. I'm
right.
asking you this question. Why would you leave this amazing job to go into entrepreneurship?
Great. So yeah, that was it. I sort of like, and so that was why I like had decided I needed to leave, basically. I just didn't know how it was gonna look. And I was like, well, it's a perfect opportunity to just totally pivot and do something totally different. And so yeah, that's why I decided to just go for it. It was a dream, and I thought business was the way to make it happen. And that's kind of how it came about. Yeah.
I didn't know that you lived with Georgia, actually. I know you're really good friends. And, part of this podcast is to explore how people become who they are. And it's not just from childhood, right? It's your environment as well. It's the people you spend time with and you get inspired by them and you inspire them as well. What advice would you give to someone who wanted to give up a great job to be an entrepreneur?
I would always say that, like, I would always say to just go for it, because, and it could be really small. I think there's this idea that, you have to quit your job and you have to put all your life savings into the business and sleep on your friend's floor in order to start a business. And that's really scary. Like, most people don't want to do that, especially if you're a bit older. And actually, it doesn't have to look like that. It can look like something really small. It can look like every Sunday I want to set the scarf business. And every Sunday, I'm going to dedicate the whole day to like sourcing some material, finding a manufacturer, setting up at a market, thinking about brand. And you can do so much, I mean, alongside work, but you can also go part time, take it bit by bit. You can prove concept. And then I would also say, it rarely looks like what you think it's going to look like. The business idea that you might have before you start trying will probably be really different. And so just pivoting will be your biggest strength. And you can do that when you're not totally reliant on the income from it. And so, yeah, if someone wants to leave a great job, I'd just say start small, try a trial concept, just give it a go, be open to it shifting. And then, the time will come. If it feels right for you to quit and go all in, you will feel it and you will. And if it's not quite working, then you either keep going on something different, or you can say, I've tried and like, I'm actually not going to leave. So yeah, I think it's just the confidence to just go.
That's really good advice. You have a cookbook coming out. Did you write it?
Yes. Yes, I wrote it. It's been like the best thing I've ever worked on. It's so mad to me that people are gonna cook from my book. So yeah, I wrote it. It was really fun. It's like such a dream. And it's got loads of family recipes in it. And of course it's all paneer. It's all paneer recipes, which is great.
What's it called?
It's called, I actually don't think I'm allowed to disclose the title or anything. It's all a big secret.
We'll do the big reveal next time. When is it coming out?
September 2026.
Brilliant. Riya, it was so great to have you on the show. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks so much, Claudine.